2, 1. Hi, everybody. It's Wendy Cherry, and we are live here on the Sanctuary Radio Show. Now, for those of you who were here last night, we were here last night again with Jamila White, the medium. And so now we're back. And so we're going to have a really cool show for you again today, of course, but let us go and share our media. It always takes a little second for us to share the media. So give us a second. We're going to share to our pages and everything. So please give me a second, and then I will introduce my guest and we will go right to it. So this is going to be super, super interesting. And we are talking about sexual healing and the power of human touch and just the power of being a human in general. Always, but specifically during the time of COVID, because again, we are gathering our tools for, for COVID. We are gathering our tools for this lockdown that's about to happen. Many of us were caught off guard during that first episode and during that first episode of the lockdown. But now we have an opportunity to be prepared this next time. So I got my line sister and my line sister Tiffany and my real sister, not real sister, my biological sister Shan's on. Hey y'all, thank you for joining. So in the studio or in the sanctuary today, I have Renee Adolphe, and she is a vet of the Sanctuary Radio Show. She was here in the studio in DC Radio, was it last year or so? It's been a minute. Yeah. And we were talking about these same things because these same things are consistent, they're constant. Our human body and the way that we can engage in our human body. So Renee is a sex therapist. She's a relationship therapist. You have a lot of stuff going on, sister. So first of all, welcome. But then please tell the people who you are and kind of like some of the certifications and licensures and all those things that you have.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be back again. I always love being on your show and talking to you. So yes, like you said, I'm Renee. I also go by Prandhara Prem, which is my tantric initiation name.
Okay, so you're gonna have to explain that in a second. Yes. Keep on going, but I'm gonna write down that you're gonna explain tantric initiation name.
Okay, and that name just simply means to go with the flow of love and life. So, I'm a psychotherapist, so that's what I got my degree in. Okay. And in psychotherapy, I was a licensed professional counselor, teaching how to private practice. And then I started learning Reiki and working with Reiki. So I'm certified Reiki master in different types of Reiki, actually. And there's several, but traditional Reiki, shamanic Reiki, Egyptian Reiki, which is Sekim, and Kundalini Reiki. So I'll be talking about Kundalini energy soon.
Okay.
And I went on and got a postgraduate degree in transpersonal psychology. Then I did some certification and training in shamanism, just working with plant medicine, healing through using plant medicine and the elements of the earth. So
okay.
And last but not least, somehow I found Tantra, which is what I've been working with mostly. And I did a Tantra certified course and a certification in sex and relationship coaching. So okay, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
That's a lot. So I would love for you to unpack a little bit of that, because you said the word Tantra a few times, and I'm not sure if people know what Tantra is. I know I didn't know what it was. I had a vision of it many years ago, and I too have gone through just, I guess if there's like 4 parts of Tantra or whatever, at least in the school that I was learning from, I only went through stage 1. Mm-hmm. And then I went to another like a 3-day lock-in workshop for Tantra. But can you explain really what Tantra is and what it means?
Yeah. So Tantra actually has a lot of different definitions, but in general, Tantra means expansion. So it's really about expanding our mind, our energy, so that we're open to the different things that's around us. We're open to all of the different energy. It's expanding our body so that we can feel more. And it also means a weave of connection. So everything is connected, you know? And so that's one of the most important things about Tantra. And I love Tantra specifically because it's helped me with my relationship issues. And Tantra is really, really good to help with any traumas that you have in your body, to release the traumas, the stresses, the blockages, the repression. So it's really, really effective with that. And I found as a psychotherapist that doing work with Tantra is a lot more effective and a lot quicker. So a lot of times people hear Tantra and they only think of tantric sex.
Yeah.
The meat. Yes. But working with the tantric sex is only like 5% of Tantra, really. There's a whole 95% that's working with connecting you, being present, helping you to connect to your body, releasing the traumas and blockages that's in your body.
Right. So that's a great definition to start with. And so when I was taking Tantra, shout out to Emmanuel, he was my first teacher, a great teacher. And he kind of gave the visual of you being born and you're plugged into a wall and you're full, like you have the full energy. You're totally sort of like if your computer comes and all you got to do is charge it up and is good. And then the plug gets snatched out of the wall when you get to be a little bit older, maybe 2-ish or whatever. And they're saying, stop, don't do that. And you're starting to fall into the conditioning of school, religion, parents, expectations or whatever. And then you start to be removed from yourself. So I have been walking in the park a lot. Like I always loved to walk in the park for the last few years. And I've been doing a lot of that before COVID and during COVID, right? But I see a lot of moms with their little kids in the park. Hey, Kenya, hey, Loretta, hey, Erica. And they are playing in the water, touching stuff, touching mud, in the water with their clothes. They probably came to the park not planning to get in the water with their clothes and they let them get in. And the kids love it. And I feel like they're at their most natural state where they're exploring and touching and feeling and smelling and looking around. And I feel like that's kind of like Tantra, like a definition that I love to use as far as Tantra with being in your full body. Does that make sense?
That makes so much sense. That's a beautiful definition because really it's about awakening and connecting to all of our senses. Yes. You know, and what you described there was connecting to all of our senses. Mm-hmm. You know, and one of the people that I follow is Osho. He talks about that a lot. You know, being able to awaken your sense of sight, smell, touch, you know, hearing, like all of it. That's what makes us have more pleasure. You know, and that's that expansion that Tantra is all about, you know?
Right. I have been, hey, Latoya, I have been like tossing around over the last year or two, the whole notion of that we are the original Google. We're the original computer. Mm-hmm. So we came with everything. So, you know, you get a car and it's like factory, but then you can get the upgrades. Well, we have everything that we need. We're born with it.
Yes.
And we are also an upgrade from our ancestors. So think about when you go from like the iPhone 6 to the 11, and then you upgrade, and then you keep upgrading it, you know, whenever they give you the newest thing to upgrade. Yes. That's who we are. And I have been intentionally backing myself away so much from being stuck on this.
Yes.
And going into myself. And what do things smell like? So if we are the original Google and a lot of the senses are in the head, when you want to see something, what do? You start to scan with your eyes if you're blessed enough to have your sight. If not, then your ears are even more heightened, and then you hear, and then you can smell. And then if you take the time, you can taste the different spices and things in your food. So that's kind of like how I've been, you know, currying myself the last like year or so and trying to make sure that I am being very intentional about touching and feeling and smelling and focusing on my own senses versus being tied to like an AI, artificial intelligent, or what somebody else told me, because I got my own senses. How would you tell clients how, like, the first steps on getting in touch with who they are in their own senses?
Right. Yes. So, that's a great question. So in general, a lot of times people have just such difficulty touching themselves because, you know, we feel like, oh my God, like you just can't touch yourself. It's just
You don't
really
get hair on your knuckles. No, that's what they used to say. People used to say you'll get hair on your knuckles if you touch yourself. I heard it as a kid.
right. Or it feels weird. Like we just don't think about that. We grew up with thinking, okay, touch other people. Yes, let's touch other people, but we're not focusing on ourselves. And that's one of the things. I also teach Reiki, and that's one of the first things that I talk about with Reiki. One of the beauties of Reiki is that this is the time that we touch ourselves.
Okay.
Like when you're giving that Reiki, that healing energy, and you're sending that energy to your body, and it feels good. And it's like giving ourselves permission to touch. And right now we live in such a touch deprived society. So in addition, we're not even touching people so much anymore. We're talking about this time right now with COVID, and even pre-COVID, people had difficulty touching, and so this is why we started doing like cuddle parties, and people would go to a cuddle party just to have someone to touch them and hug them, and even just in a non-sexual way. It's just so powerful. Right. I was reading an article a while back about this guy who was on a train in New York, and a guy, typical, like sometimes you're on the train and you see people, they're losing it, and he's aggressive and he's crazy, yelling and shouting. And what does most people do? They kind of get away from him. They like, oh my God, this guy's crazy. He's gonna freak out. Right. And this lady, older lady, 70 years old, goes to him, grabs his hand, holds him, and sits down and does nothing else. Yeah. And then he begins to calm down. Yep. And relax. And then tears start to come through his eyes. Yeah. And so that's just the power of touch. Yeah. And there's just been also research showing that babies who are born premature, if their parents can't hold them, or they're not having touch, they don't gain weight, they lose weight, and then babies who are being touched by their parent or caregivers, or doing touch therapy, if they don't have a parent for some reason that could touch them, they grow faster, they gain weight. Yeah. So it's one of the things that's just so important for us, Yeah. And when I lived in the Tantra commune, one of the things that we would do, we would hug each other for three minutes. It's a long time. That's a long time. But
that's a long time.
That is a long time. Yeah. But then eventually, because what happens most of the times when we touch someone, we do that quick tap on the back when we give a hug, right. And and then that's it, right? Right. When you hug for 3 minutes, your oxytocin levels start to go up, and you start to feel better. That's known as the love hormone, the good feel good hormone. Yep. The cortisol levels go down, which helps to reduce stress. Yeah. And eventually you start to melt. And so when I would hug someone for that 3 minutes, you're hugging, and then your guard starts to go down, and you start to melt, and you surrender, and it feels good. And that's that same thing you could do to yourself. You can give yourself a hug, close your eyes, breathe, and just feel, loving ourselves, thinking about ourselves. We don't grow up thinking about, you think if we're loving ourselves, connecting to ourselves, touching ourselves, we're being selfish, we're being self-centered. We hear so many negative things.
Yeah, especially Black women. We're supposed to do stuff for other people instead of ourselves. Well, let's give a few examples of that. Hey, everybody who just joined. So, when Dwayne Wade and his wife, what's his wife's name? I can't think of her name. But when their baby was born, they were seen hugging the baby and swaddling the baby and doing skin to skin when the baby was born, because she was a surrogate. So that was their way to bond. So that was why they were doing it. And you would be surprised at how many people on Twitter and all these social media outlets were talking junk about them.
Yes.
Because they were bonding with the baby, but it was because they don't know that that's important. That's important for human beings. And even studying Tantra and learning more about myself and human behavior and just studying nutrition and the things that nourish, I realized if you go back to that man on the train, everybody just wants love.
Yes.
It does not matter that he was doing whatever. He is a human being, and human beings crave love. They crave touch. Even if they think that they don't, I don't feel like being touched, it's because at some point they were hurt.
Yes.
And so now it's a defense mechanism.
Yes. It just helps you to feel like you're accepted.
Yeah.
That you're okay as you are, you know? And even with kids, like it's so funny because, you know, going back to that example of kids, there was a time, I think earlier this year, I was in Philly with my cousins. Okay. And my cousin's wife, she had to have knee surgery. So she was in pain. And I went to give her Reiki. So I was doing Reiki, and her two kids, they're 10 and 6 years old. They were like, what are you doing? So we explained it's like, you know, this Reiki kind of special massage to help mommy feel better.
The Reiki. While you're talking about it, can you explain to the audience what exactly Reiki is?
Yeah, so Reiki is hands-on healing. Okay. And so we're made of energy, right? And so Reiki is just a way that you can channel that energy to help to heal someone, to heal if they have pain, sadness, depression. And the same thing, you can do that same exact thing with Tantra, because with Tantra, you're using the energy. And so honestly, it's that same energy, that vital life force energy, which is our sexual energy. And I'm going to get back to that and talk about our sexual energy. Because people hear sexual energy and they're like, oh, what is that? That, you know, that's just too much for them. But sexual energy is just the vital life force energy. Yeah. So when we're working with Reiki, we're working with vital life force energy. When you're working with yoga, you're working with that same sexual energy, vital life force energy. If you're doing Qigong, Tai Chi, that's the energy you're working with. So we come from sexual energy. That's everything around us. So I was doing the Reiki on the mother, on my cousin's wife. Okay. And so, you know, so the kids are like, what are you doing? I explained it to them. And they were like, oh, can you do it on me? So I did it on both of the kids. The boy who's 10 years old, he was like, oh my God, this is so good. You should get paid for this. And I was like, I do get paid for that. And the little girl who was 6'2", she was just like glowing, and they were happy and they loved it. And, you know, the whole time that I was there, they asked for it again. And then when I was leaving and going to the airport, they were in a car with me, and I was like, are you guys going to miss me? They're like, yeah, we're going to miss the Reiki massage you did for us. Can you do it again when you come back? And it's just the beauty that kids could be so open and feel that, and they know that they need it, you know, that touch, that loving touch, that energy. And that's what both of these things are about, you know?
Yeah. My daughter had surgery. She had emergency surgery just last Saturday, but she had surgery about 3 weeks ago. And during her recovery on both, I made sure that I touched her skin. And I don't know Reiki. My sister is a Reiki master. I have never been certified in it, but I definitely touched her and rubbed her back and made sure that she could feel the human touch, because I wanted to try to help heal her and make her feel comfortable and calm her cells down from the trauma of the surgeries, and just, you know, be able to do it is really important. And just like you, I read an article about the touch deprivation that people were experiencing during COVID time, because a lot of times everybody was on the go, boom, boom, boom. So you didn't really pay attention as much, but you could be in the house with people and not having any touch. So, you know, people were starting to really crave that and feeling anxious and anxiety, and, you know, some of the issues that they may have suppressed were coming up even more, because that, you know, they were needing certain things. So I have a question here, or a comment.
Okay.
Tiffany says a few years ago, she was told that middle schoolers crave hugs, and now her 13-year-old hugs you a lot. Well, make sure they do, because by the time they're 17, they're going to be like, get out of here. So
right.
How do you explain the shift and the timing of that shift? like, is middle school, high school, like, is there a certain thing that's happening in the pre-adolescent, adolescent teens that from a psychiatry perspective or psychological perspective?
Honestly, I don't see it as a shift. That's something that they're always craving in terms of from the time they come out of the mother's womb, they're
Yeah.
craving touch.
Yeah.
Babies inside of their mother's womb, they're touching themselves. There's sonograms where you can see a baby touching their penis or, you know, touching themselves. And that's like a self-soothing. So when they come out, they want hugs, they want touch from their parents.
Yeah.
So when they get older, like you said, 17, you know, they're like, they don't want it anymore. So what happens is they become conditioned to learn that, oh, to become an adult, you shouldn't need to crave. You got to be tough. You got to be strong. You know, needing a hug, that means you're weak. That's acting like a baby. You know, so they start to become conditioned by their peers or sometimes even by their parents.
Yeah.
Because sometimes parents want to raise a tough kid, a strong kid who's not going to be bullied, who's not going to be, you know, so then you start to condition that child, one, to not need to touch, and two, to not cry, you know. So, you know, and even like I remember my mom, because she wanted to keep me strong and make sure that I'm not bullied, she conditioned me to not cry. That's a show of weakness. No, you have to do this. You have, you know, be strong. And a lot of people, you know, a lot of us go through that. So in my opinion, that's what I see that causes that shift. Biologically, naturally, we want to be hugged. We want to be loved. And honestly, that's a big part of why I moved to Brazil. Like here in Brazil, people touch all the time.
Okay.
In the States, we don't touch so much. So here you could be sitting and it could be a stranger. They'll sit and they'll put their hands on your shoulders or they'll put their hands on you. The greeting is a kiss on both sides of the cheek. Yeah. Sometimes it might be one, sometimes it might be three, depending on the state where you're at, but they're very touchy-feely, you know? And so it's so important. It's so important. It's so needed. Yeah. So I hope that answered her question.
Yeah. I hope that answered your question, Tiff. So let's talk about.
I also want to just kind of touch on another thing. Okay. Our skin is the largest organ in the body and it's very responsive. So the more that you're touching, the more that you have the capacity to heal someone or yourself. You know, that's that therapeutic touch can release trauma and the stress that's held in the body. And that's why, as part of my work, I do tantric massage. Mm-hmm. And so when we're doing the tantric massage, it's about releasing those traumas. I had a client come into me who was sexually abused, and I did a tantric massage on her, and I was doing very light touches, mm-hmm. you know, just like fingery touches, feathery touches, mm-hmm. and she started crying. She was like releasing so much pain. It was just like, like it was just like the saddest crying that you could hear. Oh. And it was just releasing all of that pain. But by the time we were done, it was like a relief.
She probably felt free.
So free.
And it's so funny because like, I didn't know this, like 10 years ago, I'm thinking 10 years ago, I'm in Atlanta with my friend and we got couples massage, and I had never heard that, you know, how much of a release. And I'm just like, we get massages. That's all I knew, right? I'm down there with my face and I'm like, but I was holding it in because I did not know. I did not know. But I was like really wanting to just be like, wham, right? Mm-hmm. So now my practice before COVID, my practice has been reflexology, like at least once a month. I have the best reflexology person here. Go ahead. Were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, speaking of the reflexology, and I think that's one of the key points. I'm glad you said that because our bodies have the reflexology points, mm-hmm. right? On our hands, in our eyes. There's a thing called iridology, which you can read about the organs, your state of health. They're looking at the eyes. Has it on the ears, the feet, and on our genitals. So through massaging all of those points, besides the eyes, because you can't massage the eyes, but you can massage the hands, the feet, the genitals, and do acupuncture, ear acupuncture on the ears, and really release a lot of things. Our bodies also have meridian points and marmon points, and through Ayurvedic medicine, it's called marmon points, and Chinese medicine meridians. And so when you're touching different parts of the body, naturally it's releasing the traumas, the stress, it's releasing things. Our bodies have cellular memory. It holds on to traumas, it holds on to celeries in our cellular memory and our DNA. That's not only ours, but our parents, our grandparents, our ancestors. So when you receive massage, you receive reflexology, tantric massage, you're releasing those things.
I went one time after COVID and they opened it up because I knew I was going to be the first one. That joint was going to be clean, and it had been pent up for 3 months, 4 months. So I just kept reminding myself to just allow the touch and to enjoy the touch and be present with the touch, and whatever it was releasing, it was releasing. And it definitely is something that I'm missing, like I miss going to get my feet rubbed and all those things. And let's talk about, so a lot of times when people, especially couples, especially, I don't know, I can't generalize, but what I hear is, non-sexual touch is much needed, because sometimes you don't feel like that tap on the shoulder all the time. If they're gonna tap you on the shoulder just to massage you, but sometimes you don't feel like it, right? After a long day, the kids, the homework, the running, whatever. So let's talk about the importance of non-sexual touch, but then the importance of sexual touch, and we'll get into that part.
Yes. So sexual touch, it's so healing. It's so interesting because, going back to what I was saying about the reflexology points, our penis and the vagina, the vaginal canal, which in Sanskrit we call that yoni for vagina, and penis is called lingam in Sanskrit, right? So in those, you have the reflexology point. So just as an example, on the tip of the lingam, you have the heart organ here. At the tip, at the very deepest end of the vaginal canal is also the heart. So when you go in, those two organs meet. The same thing, you have the liver on this side, and inside the vaginal canal is going to be on that same side, so they meet. So when you're actually making love and you're conscious about it, you are healing those organs. Yes. And, and there is a way, because when we use sexual energy, we can manifest and we can heal. So it's about setting that intention and thinking about what you want. So thinking about if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling depressed, even thinking about wanting to feel good. And naturally, you're going to feel good when you're making love and you're present and you're conscious. Because again, when you have orgasm and you're doing that touch, remember, just the touch alone, you're already reducing your stress, reducing your heart rate, reducing your blood pressure and the level of cortisol. And then you're increasing the oxytocin level. So now when you add having an orgasm on top of that, it increases even more. So when you're stressed out and you're angry, you start to feel good, you start to feel happy, and we're sexual beings. So there's nothing wrong with needing sexual touch. There's nothing wrong with needing to be caressed, to be loved, to be kissed, It feels so good, and it's so important for us to continue, and it increases our immune system. But it's so important for us to continue giving us that drive to have energy to keep going, to keep working,
I think that depending on the spiritual system you were raised in, and I always have to come back to this, the spiritual system that you were potentially raised in, a lot of times has a lot of blocking effects, especially for women, because to say that you love sex or you love pleasure could get you in trouble, could make you get some kind of like the scarlet letter on you, wear on you. And so I think that, removing some of those blockages that have been put on from patriarchy and all these different things, and letting women be free in their expression of sexuality is really funny, because all these human beings walking around here, how you think they got here? You know what I'm saying? Like, they came usually from a sexual experience. Hopefully more good experiences than the bad ones, because it comes both. But I know even for myself, removing a lot of those blockages. And I read this really good article online the other day. I don't know who wrote it, but it could probably be a quick Google that somebody can find it. And it was about the myth of the good church girl, and how she is elevated in so many ways, but she's miserable. She, you know, she doesn't have the life that she wants. She's living for other people, and she's just boxed in and icy cold. And how do we reverse engineer ourselves to be able to live a more tantric lifestyle? I don't know if that's a real word, to live a tantric lifestyle, but to be more connected to ourselves, and to allow ourselves to feel the humanness of touch and of pleasure and of safety and of whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. So I want to give some tips on how to do that. But before I give those tips, it's important that we deconstruct this patriarchal system, the colonization that what we've been taught. And that's a lot of that education I do in my private sessions with my clients, because that is so important to get them to really see, okay, the blockage is not a natural thing for me. It's from society, right? We live in a patriarchal society, like you said. And so one of the things, women, we have a lot of sexual energy. We're the ones that give birth, right? And so it's a lot easier for women, not saying that men can't do this, but it's a lot easier for women to heal themselves and heal others sexually. So in general, we've been hearing a lot lately about, it's always the women going for the men. It's the women who's been fighting all of these different causes. Men don't have the women's back. Women have been doing this for centuries. It's been women who have been healing others. It's been women who were burnt at the stake for being witches, for healing other people. And so when you think about that innate ability that we have as women living in a patriarchal society, they wanted to shun us for that, make us feel fear, to weaken us, to weaken our powerful drive, that powerful healing energy that we have. So what do? They say, you don't deserve sex. Sex is only for procreation. It's a sin. You're going to hell. Close your legs. Wear long dresses. So this is where all of that comes from. I can't see God writing this down, right? God saying, women, wear long dresses. Don't touch yourself. Don't allow anyone to touch you, or you're a hoe. What is that?
So Black woman is God, so she ain't gonna say that.
And I do want to touch on that as well. So again, that's a whole patriarchal system. So when we look at how is everything created, how are we all here? We're here because of a sperm and an egg that met. So it's the female and it's the masculine and feminine energy. So how could it be just one God, a masculine God, to create all of this? You need a God and a goddess to create this world. And so for me, and then you hear the whole in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Everything is patriarchal. Where is the woman in that system? Where is that feminine energy in that system? So we've all been designed to keep us, especially as women, down, but then also just the sexual energy in general, because it's the most powerful energy there is. Again, through sexual energy, you can heal yourself, you can manifest. The church, who wants to dominate and control us, they suppress that energy, they repress that energy. So you're not allowed to enter into contact with that,
And I learned, maybe in the last 5 or 6 years, that sexual energy was energy, like a manifesting energy, a birthing, fertile energy. And, it's really interesting because we ain't just talking about you have to birth babies. You can also birth businesses, ideas, all these different things. It's not just always about, a baby if you don't want a baby. So you know, I know that you did a show recently, and this might be taking them all the way out, but you did a show recently on sex magic, and I've been studying it just for a few years. It's so interesting in the manifesting power of it. And I learned about it through taking my daughter to a African-centered entrepreneurship class like 2-3 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And she's only 17, so she was like, you know, 14 then. And the teacher says, you know, teenagers have a lot of sexual energy. Mm-hmm. So you can use that sexual energy to manifest instead of getting yourself in trouble, getting yourself pregnant and getting, you know, using it in that way. You can channel it to your studies, to your studying, to your entrepreneurial endeavors. And I was sitting there with like that emoji from the apple where the head is blown. I had never heard nothing like that before. And I was like, why is he telling these kids that? But it's true, because that's just the natural way. You don't have to use it, you know, in a way that you're not ready for it. The sex for a teenager, they're not ready for it. Right. But they can use that same energy to birth the other things. And the same with us. We can birth other things. So tell us, let's talk a little bit about that. And what do you tell clients on how to maybe harness that energy?
Yes. So there's a lot of different ways that you can harness that energy. And so for me, the interesting thing is on my journey, I used to have sex a lot. I used to have lots of sex. Okay. And it was for so many different reasons. I had a lot of that sexual energy, also the crave, the connection, the contact. But then once I started working with Tantra, I actually have less drive to have sex, like, because I'm constantly, all the time, I'm using that sexual energy. So I'm constantly using that sexual energy and I'm feeling satiated, right? And so how do you do that? There's several different ways, like pranayamic breathing. Pranayama is just conscious breathing. So there's a lot of these strong words, that Sanskrit words, when we start coming into Tantra or yoga. And so pranayama just means conscious. So when we do conscious breathing, I teach a lot of my clients to do belly breaths, deep breathing with their belly breath. As they're breathing, their belly comes out, expands. As they go in, the belly goes in as they breathe out, and letting out an ah. So let's actually do that right now and just kind of see how you feel. So
okay,
just close your eyes.
All 9 of y'all on here, let's do that together.
Yeah, so everyone together, just close your eyes and take a nice deep breath in. As you breathe in, feel your stomach expanding. And as you exhale, exhale, ah. And let's do it just 2 more times. If you need to put your hand on your stomach, you can put your hand on your stomach and just feel. And last time. And just notice what happened to your body. Just notice what you feel. And then, so that's just, our body is naturally relaxing, but that's one of the basic tantric breathing tools that we use. Because first and foremost, when you want to start healing, you have to be in a relaxed state. Okay. When you're starting to channel that sexual energy, you have to be relaxed. You have to be able to connect to that energy, feel that energy. Right. Then I do different types. I teach my clients different types of breathing. We'll do about 3 of these as well. Okay. And just kind of notice what you're feeling. So now what we're going to do, we're going to breathe in, hold that breath. As you hold that breath, focus on the genital. Hold it as long as you can. Hold, focusing on your genital, whether it's vagina, penis. And then when you can't hold it anymore, breathe out. So let's do 3 of those. Breathing in. Hold that breath. Focus on the genitals and just notice. Notice what's happening into the genital. As you bring your awareness, that attention, that energy to the genital area, and release. 2 more times. The next time, breathe in. And one last time, breathing in. Release. So, and that's one of the beginning exercises as well, to start to kind of connect to that sexual energy. The next part, we're not going to do that now, but then I will teach after that, after you master those basic things. A lot of times people, when you do it for like 3 minutes, people start to say they start feeling a tingling in the genital area, or they start feeling something or different type of energy. Then what I do, the next step, as you exhale, you hold that yourself, you hold without an ear, and you bring that attention to your third eye, or you bring your attention to what you want to heal, what you want to manifest. And that's a way of driving that energy up from the sexual energy to what intention that you want to set. So that's a great little technique, but you want to master the basic first. So right. There's also many different types of breath movements that you can do. Another thing that I do, really, really important, that's tantric, is hip movements. So what happens? So many times we're sitting at a desk or we're not moving, and so when you start doing hip movements, going back and forth, moving your hips back and forth, doing circles, doing circle eights. Sometimes I tell people, for women specifically, to do belly dance.
I love belly dance. My fave. It's my fave. Belly dance is my fave.
Yes, but this is why in so many countries in the African diaspora, you see a lot of hip movements. Yeah. You see a lot of twerking. Yep. Even here in Brazil, we have the samba, the forró, and there's a lot of hip movements. And salsa, bachata, a lot of, in the Caribbean, soca, whining, wind your waist, mama, wind your waist. So this is what we're doing. When we're doing that, we're actually working with that sexual energy. You're allowing that Kundalini energy, which everybody, when they hear Kundalini, they're like, oh my God, what's that? Right. Oh, I'm going to go crazy. I'm afraid to awaken that. Kundalini is just another word for saying sexual energy. Okay. It's the same exact thing, that vital life force energy that lays dormant at the base of your spine. So when you're moving the hips, you're allowing that energy to circulate throughout your body. You're opening up your hips so they're more flexible and allowing that sexual energy to be able to rise up. So that's really important. And when you're doing these breathing, the movements, later you can start adding the Kegel exercises, squeezing your yoni, contracting the yoni when you're doing the breath work and you're doing the hip movements, and that's really stimulating that sexual energy. Anytime you're doing any of these movements, thinking about what you want to heal, because it intensifies that power to heal your body and connect to your body. Think about if you want to write a book. Think about, okay, I want to write a book, or I want to write a song, or you'll start to see when you're doing this, the things will start coming to you. I did a workshop in LA a while back, and a lady, I didn't even know, she was a writer. She was suffering from writer's block. Okay. And what we did was we did these hip movements, we did the breath work, the dancing, and she said the next day, she just started writing. Yep. And like, so much came out. And so these things, although they sound so simple, we're working with that sexual energy with these basic movements. Yeah. Masturbation, you're also working with that. So I tell people it's important to masturbate. You want to have conscious masturbation. When we hear about masturbation, we're like, oh, it's evil, it's a sin. Yep. But it's a natural part of us. I said earlier that fetuses were found in the with ultrasounds to be touching themselves. Yeah. So it's a natural thing. Babies touch themselves, toddlers touch themselves, but then parents are like, no, don't do that. There's something wrong with that. Right. Now I do say being conscious, as I tell men this all the time, because there's a lot of men who masturbate and they're watching porn and they go into that fantasy world, or they begin to have an addiction where they have to masturbate 5, 6, 10, 15 times a day. Yes. And that's when it becomes a problem, because you're in the fantasy world, you're not conscious, you're not present, you're not feeling your body, and you're doing it for another reason. You're doing it because you feel an emptiness or you're trying to fulfill something. So you need to figure out what that is that you're missing,
Right.
so that you're not, going into this addiction. But other than that, it's so important. Tantric sex as well works on activating that sexual energy again, because we have the organs in the genitals, and it connects. So it's almost like massaging those organs. It's like doing reflexology. And there are very specific points, positions that in tantric sex that we teach. People would think of Kama Sutra, but so that is, there are many different Kama Sutra positions, but there's other ones too that's not so elaborate.
Right.
Meditation is really good as well to help open up that sexual energy. Meditation is important because it helps us to be present, to be grounded, to be conscious, to be aware, to be able to see what we're feeling and what's going on in the different movements. So when we want to awaken our sexual energy to heal, these are things that we could do to start to awaken that. Reiki as well. Reiki is also good to help awaken that sexual energy for healing, because we need to be grounded. So many times people want to just get enlightened and waking up their spiritual selves without being grounded. But you have to be grounded, or you'll be like way out there.
Yeah, it's balance.
Yes.
Balance. And so a lot of times, and I know that for myself, and I write about it in my book, is it's like I didn't have that balance. I was very ethereal, And from Tantra, I got to understand more about my birth story and how that helped me, how that impacted me in being more of an ethereal and working from the chakras up. The more heavenly chakras, and then the grounding was not there. There was no sense of safety. There was no sense of being taken care of and things like that in utero. So I became just ethereal, and the balance caused stagnation. So a lot of times when people think they just have fibroids because of a bad diet only, or because of trauma to the womb only, a lot of times it can go a little bit deeper based on what happened to you and what you become aware of. So I just, in the last few years, became aware of that part for me, and my healing journey from studying Tantra. And so it goes so fast. We got like 15 minutes left, because we started like a few minutes after. But for those who are at home with their family members, their children, their significant other, their partner, whomever, you showed a few exercises, but what do you tell the parent who has been at the desk all day, the mom, the woman who has been at the desk all day, that she still got to run to the stove, and she got to come back, probably cook the dinner, take care of the kids? How do you find the time to do these exercises, to start to ground yourself, to even, we're giving you the permission here. If you ever felt like you needed permission, validation, here it is. So now the next step is, how do you activate these things? What do you tell your clients?
Yes, I tell them, start simple. It's so, it really is actually easy, but it's almost like you just have to remember. So you can be sitting at your desk, and when you're sitting at your desk, just start doing hip movements. So I'm like sitting here, and as you're sitting, just move your pelvic forward and back.
Erica, Jamila, Nicole, Kendra.
And see how that feels. Do those hip movements, do some circles, moving the pelvic back and forth. So you could be sitting typing and just moving them hips.
Okay.
Move them hips. And you know what it's going to do? It's actually going to release that pressure from your back. Like as I'm doing that now, my back is feeling good.
Right.
Like, so just being conscious of doing that. I tell people too, you might be washing dishes. So you're like washing dishes, move those hips while you're washing dishes, do those circles. So incorporating it into your life.
Nicole said, hey, yeah, I jumped right in.
Hey, Nicole. And Kegel exercises. That's something you could do anywhere. So all you're doing is contracting that same muscle as if you have to pee. So you contract it and then relax it. So almost you got to pee, hold it, and then relax like you're letting go. So you can do that anywhere you are. And that's a big start. And you can do that anytime. You could be in the office, you could be sitting behind your desk, sitting, watching TV. And that's a huge way to be able to start getting into that, into the rhythm. And then once you start doing it, you're gonna be like, oh, this feels really good. Then you start to say, okay, I actually want to make time to just do this without doing anything else because it feels good. So then later you're gonna say, okay, I can do that. Another thing that I did, I literally programmed 5 minutes on my calendar.
Okay.
5 minutes. Okay, now is the time to as I picked up my phone, I saw someone say how to get into the show.
Watch the play because it's about to be over.
It's about to be over. Oh, what a shame. What a shame. Okay, so anyway, I'll send her the replay link. So anyway, what was I saying? I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so I put in the calendar 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just kind of, do your breathing, do your meditation, and literally it'll go off and I say, okay, 5 minutes.
Okay.
Where I'm at, I just start movement. I just start shaking. I take a few deep breaths. I set my timer on the phone as well.
Okay.
And that's it, So that little thing, setting your timer on your, putting a calendar or an alarm to remind you, that's going to help. Doing it while you're working. Honestly, we say that a lot of times we're like, oh, I don't have time. I'm going right from here, right from here, right from here, right from here. We have 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
Right? You sleep maybe between 6 to 8 hours a day. So we have a huge time frame where you actually have 5 minutes that you can do. And I know it doesn't feel like it, but you do. So, but what happens is when you take that 5 minutes to actually love and nurture yourself and giving yourself that present, because that's what it is, you're giving yourself a present, a gift, then you feel like you actually have more time in a day. And then you actually get more done. Because remember, we were talking about this earlier, that it helps your creative energy, because it's not about just creating, it's helping you to be able to create, to do. When we're working with the sexual energy, we're awakening that creative force. We're awakening, giving us that power to do more. So it actually does help you to be more productive. It does help you to feel better and to just really feel like you have more time. So does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And one of the guides that people who have helped me elevate and get plant seeds and I go follow them or whatever. One of them, his name is Osset Ayawaku. And she's giving a challenge this week from July 13th through August 13th to only get online 3 times for 20 minutes each, in the morning, night, and then in the middle of the day. 20 minutes each, so you get an hour. Get on, do what you got to do, scroll, whatever, and then get off. So I've been doing it. It's only been day 2, but all my clothes are picked up and put away after I washed them. I done repotted some plants, watered them, done my little exercises. I actually was in the park, in the Rock Creek Park with my girlfriends this morning. Supposed to be at 8 o'clock. There was a little detour, but we got there by 8:30, and we walked and we hiked in the park all morning. And then we went and brunched. And then I came home at 1. It was like, I would have been online just doing nothing.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? I did what I had to do. It's done. I don't have to belabor the issue. So we were in the park having a good old time, getting that vitamin D, kikiing with our masks on, taking pictures, looking at nature. And I would have said probably I got something to do, which would have just been little piddly stuff online that I could do if I set the timer for an hour, got everything that I needed to get done online, and then I went and enjoyed my life. As soon as you and I get off, my daughter and I were going out back into the sunshine to enjoy. Right. So, we say we don't have time, but we have time for the things that we want. And then, everybody's on this big self-care kick, but they think of self-care as simply going to get a massage, getting your hair and nails done. Those things are definitely important if that's what you like, but also just sitting down or doing a little exercises or learning how to touch yourself without guilt or shame, and just what it feels like and understanding what you feel like. I watched one of your shows. It's been about a month or so, and you were just talking about just the feeling of touch and see how different parts of your body feels, like the bottom of your feet versus your arms versus your face, like it all feels different. So
Yeah.
knowing that about yourself, what better person to know than your own self?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And, so the person who said how, she got on. I saw yeah, she was the one who made that comment, actually. That's so funny. The question, Nicole.
Okay,
But
okay.
yeah, so I actually do on my Patreon, I have a Patreon account, and I do teach people on Sundays. I do a self-exploration, self-exploration Sundays. So I really go in to teach how to explore, how to touch. And these aren't not necessarily sexual ways. It's just how to really explore and touch and connect to yourself, so that people can go in deeper,
Now,
So
how
I
do
do
people get in touch
touch on.
with you? How do people get in touch with you? How do they get to your Patreon, your YouTube, all your socials? Let's talk about that so that doesn't get lost.
Okay, yeah, and I do want to go into the whole importance of tears and crying as well, because that's really important.
That down. Yes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so I have Patreon. That's Prandhara Prem, Prandhara, Prem, Prem. And what Patreon is, for those who don't know, it's just a membership. And so it really is, it's a membership that starts anywhere from $5 a month up to $50 a month, but you get many different things. And so on there, that's just a way where I really try to build community. So it's not like, oh, you're just my client or I'm coaching you. We're a community, we're a family. So you can ask questions, you can receive what you need. And so through there, every Sunday, I have self-exploration Sundays where we learn how to connect our bodies, explore bodies. On Mondays, I do Monday meditation. So every Monday we're doing a meditation, and it's not all at the same time. I put it, and then you can do it when you can. You receive it, and you do it at your, at your convenience. And then Tuesdays is Tantric Tuesdays. So every Tuesday I'm talking or I'm writing about what Tantra is. So you can really get to learn and know what it is. Yes.
Okay. And then you're on IG.
Yes, I'm also on Instagram as Prandhara Prem _ Tantra. And I'm also at Sacred Soul Retreat because I do retreats for women of color as well as for couples. And
let's talk about that really quickly, because that's where we're going to come back. That's going to come back, whatever city or country you decide to be living in. What do your retreats go to? So now I wanted to be in Brazil with Renee for my 50th. I also was supposed to go last year. You had to give me my money back because it wasn't enough people. Like, what do your workshops look like when it's popping? What is it?
Yes. So so really, what my workshops look like when it's popping, a bunch of beautiful sisters, all different sizes, shapes, colors, shades, beautiful, who come together and we really get to learn about our bodies. We do many different things where we're self-exploring, we're self-touching, we're self-loving, we're going out into nature, into the ocean, connecting with Imanja, which is the Orisha of the ocean. And we're connecting with her, cleansing and healing with the ocean waters and the sand. Then we do tantric meditations to really release blockages, traumas, and we have really great in-depth conversations about healing, about self-love, self-care, releasing those traumas, those blockages that's in our bodies, the reasons why, we can't let go and surrender, helping women to learn how to surrender. And
and then you have couples too, right? One for couples.
And couples as well. So with couples, I teach couples how to improve their communication, their intimacy. A lot of it is teaching men how to actually have intentional touch without not just wanting to have sex. Because so many times men get so used to touching their partner when it's time to have sex. And outside of that, they're not touching so much. They're so busy. They're not even thinking,
Well,
how often?
interject right there. I heard of a study like that was recent that said that little boys are conditioned, parents are conditioned to stop hugging and touching and playing with their little boys at 3. Then they kind of let them go on and do whatever. So that's why they hit each other and touch each other's butts during football, because they still crave that touch.
Yeah,
So I heard that made sense to me.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, because it's like you need touch. I mean, men and women need touch, but men have been conditioned differently than women, right? And so they can't touch, let alone touch another man, because then you're gay.
Right.
You know, you can't touch a man. You know, but when you go to other countries that doesn't have that culture, like in India, Brazil, you see men hugging, you see men walking, holding each other's hands.
Yeah, when I was in Cameroon, they were just walking down the street holding hands. I was like, word?
Yeah.
They were like, they're not.
Right. What happens in the US? Like you see a couple holding hands or kissing to what do you call that? Too much oh, I forget what they say in the States. Then they'll be like get a room.
Get a room. Yeah.
But there's initials for
PDA.
Yes, public display of affection. Too much PDA or something like that. And it's like, what's wrong with that?
Yeah,
we should be able to be okay to show how we feel in public. Like we're just so repressed in the US. And in other countries, it's not like that. You can walk around publicly kissing and it's beautiful. Like in France or Brazil, couples are all up in each other's face and it's just beautiful and it's natural.
Yeah. So Magana says, hey, Magana. She says, nice to see women have this discussion openly. Sex is critical to our overall health. So let's just, 2 things. You from Brooklyn, how did you get to be living in Brazil? And how did you start to understand this? And when you get to Brazil and these other countries you've been in, did you have a shift in your mind of like, these people are touching, it is okay? Like, did you have a shift for yourself?
Yeah. I did because from Brooklyn, you can't even look at anybody in the eyes, right? You look at someone in the eyes, they're like, what are you looking at? They're ready to fight.
Yes. Yep.
Yes, in Jersey too. So you know how that is. Like in New York, you definitely not touching someone. You're definitely not looking in the eyes of someone else. So you know, you're constantly taught to bring your guard up. You know, you got to always be on guard, on defense, you know? And then when you're in these other countries, you can actually look someone in the eyes. You can, you know, and they were actually touching. I remember when I first got to Brazil, I was on a bus and there's like all these empty seats. What do you do in the States? You get on a bus, you see someone sitting there, but then you see all these empty seats. Where are you going to go sit?
Sit by yourself. I sit by myself.
By yourself. Not in Brazil.
Right.
Come sit right next to you. And so I'm like, what? Why is this person sit next to you? Then they'll be touching you as they're talking, putting their hands on your back and everything. And I'm like, you know, when I first got there, I couldn't even speak the language. So people would just be talking and I'll just be like, but they'll still keep talking, you know? And so it just kind of helped me to, I really started to feel like important. I really started to feel loved and cared for. You know, when I lived in the States, I didn't even know most of my neighbors' names. And then being in Brazil, I knew all my neighbors, everyone around me knew who I was, like within a week. The grocery store, I would go to the grocery store, they knew me. Whenever I would travel and I would come back, they would actually say, wow, you've been gone, where did you go? So they recognized, they noticed that I wasn't around.
Yeah.
And it was that never happened. I would go to the same grocery store where I lived. I would be gone because I traveled, come back, no one even noticed. No one would even be like, hey, I haven't noticed you here the last couple of weeks.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's so different. It's so different. And, you know, when I've been here 9 years. I mean, just being here, I was like, why would I want to go back and live in the US where I'm feeling the minute I go back to the US, like I love the US, don't get me wrong. I would never give up my US card, my passport.
US passport, girl, that blue passport. Yeah.
Right. Never, ever, ever. And there's great things about the US. But when I go there, I do feel more stress. Like immediately my stress levels go up.
Yes.
I'm tense and I can just be there 2 weeks. I'm automatically gaining weight.
Yeah.
By the time I come back to Brazil, like I see the difference. I'm not glowing anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's for a lot of different reasons. Because in Brazil, I'm getting that touch more. I'm touching, touching, touching. They're so much more open. The food is different. So, you know, like I feel like it doesn't have all the agrotoxins, all the preservatives and all of that stuff. So you just end up feeling, you know, different, you know.
Let me ask you this though. How are you guys managing? Because Brazil has one of the highest rates of COVID. Your president got COVID. Like, how are they managing that there? Doesn't seem like they're doing any better than we are here.
Oh, they're going crazy because of the whole thing that they can't touch. But the interesting thing is, it really is almost similar to the US and how it's being managed by the government,
Right.
unfortunately. But I still do see people are kind of going out more. I'm completely in quarantine. The only time I leave the house is if I'm going to the grocery store and I'm wearing masks. But I'll see a lot of times people like on my corners, they're sitting out, they're talking, they're laughing like nothing, you know? And sometimes they're not even wearing a mask, or they'll have the mask on, but then they'll put it down so they can talk, which defeats the whole purpose.
Right.
You know, so it's kind of difficult because here they are used to being touchy, feely, close. And so a lot of times they still are. And I think that's a big thing that's driving the numbers up.
Gotcha.
You know, still it's hard to do this quarantine correctly, you know, with the mask, without the touching. You know, a lot of my clients that I work with, they've told me they're still going out to meet someone to have sex. And I'm like, wow. You know, still doing it.
So you were featured on Married at First Sight. So tonight is tonight, you don't even watch the show, but tonight is the premiere of like the 11th or 12th season. I was a day oneer, right? I love that show. It's like the best social experiment. If they were to connect old people, I would choose to be on it. And but you were on it and you were teaching one of like the couples who the guy, everybody in the world who watches that show wanted to choke him out. Because he really did our girl Molly wrong, right? But you were on there to teach them some Tantra moves. And so how did you attract that experience and how was it for you? Because you didn't even watch the show.
Yeah, I never even watched the show. So it's so interesting, you know, when I came onto your show yesterday with Jamila, right? And I had asked the question. Yes, and Jamila said you manifest really well, and so she didn't know me. She didn't know that I work with this power of sexual energy, and yes, I do manifest very well. So that's one of the things, and it's just a natural thing that I don't try to say. Okay, I want to go do this. I want to be on this show. It just that energy. I put it out there, and things come. Yeah. And so the producer found me through my website and really liked what she saw on my website and asked if I would be willing to do the show. So I was like, of course. So my website is, if you want to check that out, is www.prandhara.com. So it's my same name, Prandhara.prem.com, prandharaprem.com. And so I went on there, but I had never watched the show. I didn't know anything about the couple. I didn't know what was going on. And I'm not going to lie, when I first started with that couple, I was like, I was sweating. I was like, oh my God, this is the most difficult. Like, he is difficult. Like, I didn't see anything. And I was like, I don't know if this is going to work with the two of them. Right. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do the best that I can. And I started teaching them to look into the eyes. So that same thing I was talking about earlier, that, you know, being from Brooklyn, you can't even look into people's eyes. So one of the things that I teach couples is that Tataki, which is a Sanskrit name for eye gazing. I teach them to look into each other's eyes and to breathe together. So again, going back to that breath work, we're breathing together, looking to each other's eyes. And the eyes really is the seat of the soul. Right. You know, and so you really connect to your partner. And then, you know, so I taught many different things. And I actually did see with that couple just a little opening for that moment where they actually allow themselves to become vulnerable and they connected. Yeah. You know, so I honestly feel like if I was able to do more sessions and not just that one with them, we could have seen we could have possibly seen a difference.
Well, he was hollering at her friend, so that's how it all played out. So when Renee said she was going to be on the show, I was hyped. I was like, yeah, I was watching it. I like posted it, and then I go back and was like, yeah, you were talking to Molly, and she was like, I don't even know, I don't even watch the show, but he, you know, that was the DC episode, the DC.
Yes.
So, you know, but I think that it's important for anybody. And have you ever tried to look at somebody who in the eyes, like you're saying, it's a meridian, it's a point. Have you ever tried to look at anybody? And I know that they had trouble, because if you try to look at anybody for more than like 3, 4, 5 seconds, it can be tough. And then it becomes a little intimidating, and then it comes a little nerve-wracking. It just depends on how long. And it's the same for a hug. Like you were saying in the beginning, in my sorority, my big sisters told us we ain't doing them pats on the back. We have to hug.
Yeah. And you know what does happen? A lot of times when I do this with couples, many times they cry. I've seen men cry as well doing this, men and women. And I'm actually just going to touch this real quick. I know we're going over.
And we got to wrap up because I know you have to go.
Yes, I have to go. I actually have a client in 15, 17 minutes.
Yes.
So, but this is important because actually this is a good segue just to talk a little bit about tears being a sign of strength, because so many people have that difficulty with it. But what I see when I do with the couples and they're looking into each other's eyes, sometimes they'll start to laugh, right? Because they're feeling uncomfortable. But when they get past that laughter, they begin to cry. Because this is the first time they're actually connecting to their partner.
Yeah.
And I actually have people do this individually, looking in the mirror and doing this eye gazing with yourself. And sometimes you'll start to cry. And I've done that, and I've started to cry. And what happens when you're crying, you're actually releasing toxins that's in your body. So it's helping you to release things that your body's not needing so that you can, be able to move on. And crying is a function of the parasympathetic nervous system that helps you to be able to relax. And so it's so important. So it's a thing that comes natural to us as well. And it really is, I did that video. You had talked to me about a video where I cried. And it was interesting because one of the things, the first time that I saw my dad cry, it was the thing that was the strongest thing I had. For me, I was a child and I saw him cry, and I felt that made him strong. Wow. I was like, wow, my dad just cried in front of me. Yeah. I was like, that's amazing. Like that was powerful. And that made me actually want to connect with him and see what was going on to be able to help him, not like in as a victim kind of way, but it just made me understand what he was going through. And so for me, actually, when I hear about men crying, I don't see that as, oh, you're being a punk. Like for me, that's beautiful. And in general, when we're able to surrender and allow ourselves to be vulnerable, what happens naturally? That other person gets closer to you and they start to share and open up as well. And if that person doesn't, they're just horrible then in terms of emotions. They're immature, so they shouldn't be in your life anyway.
They're repressed,
really speaking, So.
Well, I mean, I make it intent. It doesn't take much for me to cry. I can watch a movie and boohoo. I can watch some of those military people coming home and then surprising their kids and cry, or watch a baby cry. But I do it intentionally if I haven't in a while, to make sure that I'm releasing those toxins, because it's definitely very important for healing. But I know that you have to go because you have a client. But let's talk about how people you talked about how they can find you, Prandhara Prem, and your name is spelled out here, and I'll put it in the show notes. But then also, what is your Cash App? Because we have had a few people who have been here, and if you feel like you got anything, I would love for you to just send her a few dollars, or book a session with her. Book a session and learn more about these about these tips that she has. And then when things open back up, we can all go to whatever country she's in for her session, because I know it's going to be bomb. Like that first one is going to be bomb.
Yes. Oh, it is. It is. I already have people
with my man. Like the couples one, that's when we gonna come together.
Yes.
So what is your Cash App? And I'm gonna type it in here.
Yeah. So my Cash App is the money symbol Renee, Renee.
Yep.
My middle initial M as in Marie, Adolphe, Adolphe. So that's Renee, Renee Adolphe. And I don't know if the capital is important because normally it's capital Renee, capital M, capital A.
I did it that way. So, you know, it's an exchange. It's an exchange of energy. Money is energy, currency. And if you feel like you got something, you give something. It's just a way to also be in tune with who you are and be in tune with energy. And when you get something good, you always give back. It's just a cycle.
Right. So, and that's so true. And I tell people that all the time because, you know, one of the things, the analogies I give, if you have money and you have it in your hands and you're closed and you're not giving, you're not allowing space for it to come in as well. Absolutely. And that's one of the biggest things of manifesting when we work with energy is giving, you know, and the more you give, the more that you receive in return, you know. So that's my Cash App, but also I have Patreon. And again, with the Patreon, that goes anywhere from $5 to $50. So Patreon, you can reach me at Prandhara Prem. And that's a good way that you could support me and give, but also receive a lot from that. And then if you want to have a session, I'll work with people on, you know, being able to connect to their body, to become orgasmic, just to be able to really release the sexual trauma. I specialize a lot with sexual trauma in general, repression, blockages from being able to open up. And when we work with sexual energy, you're actually working with everything, because a lot of times you'll notice if someone is very controlling and rigid in their work life, they don't have orgasms. They can't because they're controlling in that area. So naturally, when we're working in one area, we're working in that other area. So a lot of times you start to see people start to flow. Money starts coming in more because we're unblocking that energy.
Yeah.
So you'll see when we start working that other things start to flow in your life just naturally. If you want to set up a free consultation, I do give free consultations, 30 minutes. Okay. So you can send me a message on Facebook or to my website or to my email, which is just prandharaprem@gmail.com. Okay. And we can set something up.
I love it. Thank you so much. You know, I saw you on like CNN with Soledad O'Brien, and then I looked at your website, but as soon as we connected, you were just so welcoming and down to earth and pleasant. And, you know, like I said, this is her second time on my show. So I appreciate you for being that way. And I appreciate, and I just wish you all the best in everything. And whatever country you go to, I'm coming to visit. And whatever, you know, sessions you have moving forward as far as retreats, I can't wait to come, because that was always a part of the plan. And just like you said in the beginning, it's all God's timing. When it's time, I'm going to be there. So we wish you the best. And she says it's winter in Brazil, so stay warm. Stay
all safe. Right, thank you. Yes, I have on my long sleeve.
Stay safe. And then everybody, again, you are in the Sanctuary. This is the Sanctuary Radio Show. This is Summer School. Next week, we are talking about true homeschooling. I will have people from the mamas, Monica and Jessica, from the Sankofa Homeschool Collective that's here in Washington, D.C., but now we are virtual. We have had we are in our second session of being virtual all over the world to educate our children, educate them on things that they are interested in, and educate them with people who look like them. And I am also planning to teach a wellness class for the kids this fall, talking about just what we're talking about now, connecting to yourself, realizing you are the technology in ways that food can help support that. So please, next Wednesday at 4 p.m., watch the Sanctuary Radio Show. We have stuff all the way through August, every Wednesday right here. And please share, like, and share. Contact Renee, follow her on all of her socials, and check out her YouTube channel. You do some really interesting stuff. They talked about some sex magic the other day. So if you're really interested, then check it out. So again, thank you all for joining us. Yes, did you have something?
Welcome. You can say real quick, speaking of that, every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I have my YouTube show coming on. So join me tonight. Tonight, I'm actually going to be talking about yoni love. Yoni, again, is the vagina. So we're going to be talking about how to take care of that. Talking about yoni breathing, yoni eggs. So for the ladies, come on and watch. And men, you could come watch too, because you could discuss this with your woman if you want, you know, at least you know, or if you have a daughter, if you feel like you want to talk about it. So join us tonight.
So it's Prandhara Prem on YouTube.
I'm sorry?
It's Prandhara Prem on YouTube?
Yes. Yes, okay. You can find on YouTube either Prandhara Prem or Renee Adolphe, either way.
Okay, and subscribe and then just check it out because it's juicy. I check in every now and again and I see and I'm like, woo. Okay. All right. I love it. I love it. I'm learning. So I appreciate the lessons. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me again. It was amazing. As always, have a good one. Love you. And thank you guys for watching. And I'll talk to you soon.
Peace.
Peace.